one of our favorite companies today, HubSpot. We have covered HubSpot a lot on SaaStr. And if you go to SaaStr.com, you can see incredible interviews we've done with CEO Yamini Ranga and CTO HubSpot, Dharmesh Shah, founder and chairman Brian Halligan, and so many others. It has been great to really dig in with the founders and executives of HubSpot over the years. And why do we follow them so much? Well, because HubSpot's a lot like us in several ways. First of all, a lot of us use it. We did a survey at SaaStr and informally at SaaStr Annual last year. And at SaaStr Annual, the majority of the attendees used HubSpot, at least at the session we were at, and almost half on our broader survey that we did online used HubSpot. A majority still use Salesforce for CRM, but close to it used HubSpot for CRM and marketing automation. I mean, every founder uses HubSpot for marketing automation. So we all use HubSpot. We've all tried it. We all sort of know HubSpot. And interestingly and helpfully, HubSpot is SMB. It's really the M of SMB, as Brian Halligan has said many times. But it is an SMB app, so it's a lot like what we do. It can be hard for some of us as founders to really understand what ServiceNow does or Palantir, these very heavy enterprise niche applications. We can sort of get it, but most of us have products that sell to companies small, medium, and large. So there is significant overlap with HubSpot's customer base, its motions, its type of product to what we're doing. So I really find it's one of the best ones for us to learn from. And 2023 is weird times. It is weird times. Interest rates have increased faster than in modern history. And many SaaS startups are deeply struggling. And yet, Gartner predicts record overall spend for SaaS software, both this year and next year. And yet many cloud leaders are, if not growing as fast as the peaks of 2021, the crazy lockdown peaks, they're still growing at epic rates. One of them is HubSpot. HubSpot has just crossed, now wait for it if you don't know this, HubSpot has just crossed $2 billion in ARR, and it's growing 30%. Still at $2 billion. That means it's adding 600 million of new bookings per year, folks. Now, is that as crazy as it was at the peak? No, at the peak at 1.7 billion, it was growing 40%. So growth has come down a bit, and we'll chat about why in our 5 interesting learnings. But it is still epic. It is growing 30% at 2 billion in revenue, folks. And what that means is, I know things are tougher. I know budgets are being scrutinized. I know upsells are much harder for almost everyone. And we'll see it's been harder for HubSpot. It's harder for Twilio. It's harder for Cloudflare. It's harder out there, but don't make too much of an excuse out of things. If HubSpot can add 600 million in new bookings this year in sales and marketing, categories that are more impacted than infrastructure than others, if they can add 600 million of new bookings, if they can grow 30% at 2 billion ARR, why can't you grow 60% or 90% or 120%? You probably can do even better than you're doing if HubSpot's doing that well. Take it as a good-natured challenge. Okay, so let's take it 5 interesting learnings about HubSpot, and then we'll have a few bonus learnings that'll really be more like 8 or 9. Okay, number 1, and we are seeing this everywhere. We are seeing this with so many leaders. They are combining strong growth with a brand new level of efficiency. HubSpot has accelerated its path to double-digit operating margins. It is much more profitable, at least on a non-GAAP basis, than it was even a year ago. It is more profitable probably than it planned on having to be, like many of us, from small startups to the biggest. But HubSpot has radically accelerated its efficiency, and we'll talk about why in a minute, without it appearing to impact growth. We're still hitting epic growth rates of 30% while having double-digit operating profit margins. So this is what we're seeing with everybody. Everyone across the board that is public is getting more, almost everyone is getting more profitable, more efficient today. They are growing quickly with increased spend, but not as accelerated a spend as 12, 18, 24 months ago. And HubSpot's the latest one. Rapidly increased its efficiency. So that is the theme of 2023. Okay, point 2. HubSpot is driving its ACVs up, but only modestly. ACV has increased to $11,400, which is meaningfully up from the 10K it was at for several years, but it's not that much. It's up 6% year over year, and HubSpot also is phasing in pricing increases, which probably accounts for a big portion of it. But it's not dramatic. It is not dramatic, but it helps. Why does it help? It helps because with SMBs, they've got 180,000 customers. That's up 23%. But because of the NRR being above 100%, which we'll chat about next, and because of modest increase to 6%, combined together, they're able to grow 30% from a 23% customer increase. And I think if you look at SMB SaaS, that's the ultimate challenge. Can you grow revenue faster than your customer count? No matter what anybody says, most SMB SaaS starts with low NRR. When Brian and Dharmesh, the co-founders of HubSpot, came to SaaStr Annual 2022, they talked about how, I think it was until 30 or 40 million ARR, they were still stuck at 75%, 85% NRR. They didn't even hit 100 until they went multi-product and built up more of a suite. But you need to ultimately do that to grow revenue faster than customer count. So HubSpot's doing that. It has raised prices. It has driven up deal size, but not dramatically from 10K to 11.4 over the years. Okay, point 3, efficiency viewed differently. Revenue versus employee count. And we are seeing this all across public SaaS and cloud companies, and we're seeing it across startups. Here's the math. How did HubSpot get much more profitable this last year? How did it get more efficient? It's pretty simple, folks. Revenue's up 30%, but employee count's up only 10. Okay? Grow your revenue faster than your head count. You're going to get more efficient. This does not mean cut things to the bone. This does not mean stop marketing spend. What it does mean is this is software, and software is write once, many people use it, ship everywhere. It should work that way. So as you should still invest in the future. You should still invest in marketing and sales and product and more, but you need right now, for most of us, to grow the head count just more slowly than revenue. I remember during the worst times as a founder in 08 and 09, when things were literally 100 times worse than they are today, when the biggest banks in the world were about to fail. That's what I did as a CEO. I didn't know we weren't as smart as we were today. We didn't have the public companies like HubSpot to analyze their metrics and learn from. But we were cash flow break even at the time. So that's what I said. I said, listen, for every, dollar we bring in, we can spend 80% on people. That's what we did. So we didn't stop hiring. We didn't pause hiring. We didn't even do layoffs or anything. We just grew headcount a little bit more slowly than revenue. And that meant every month we might have one new hire to make. And then as we grew a little bit more, it was 2. And we just decided for our organization at this size, at this scale, who's the best one rec we should put on? Who's the best one hire, the best 2, the best 3? And, at a macro level, that's what HubSpot's doing. Revenue's up 30%, headcount's up 10%. Do that math and you will scale efficiently no matter what else happens. Okay, point 4, we kind of did this math, but we'll dig into the NRR. 23% customer growth leads to 30% revenue growth. That's that magic ratio, getting there with SMBs, getting revenue to grow faster than customer count is the ultimate sort of magic number for SMB SaaS. But it is a little bit harder for HubSpot. Their NRR has dipped to 104 from 110%, which they hit last year. They're not alone. Freshworks, which sells to SMBs too, saw a very similar NRR dip. It's across the board. Basically, what everyone's seeing is that gross churn for leaders is not really going up. In many cases, downgrades are not increasing, but upsell is just harder. It's taking longer. It's across the board, and it's true at HubSpot as well. So what we see is still strong NRR for SMBs at 104, but down for 110% a year back. Number 5, super important to this whole journey for HubSpot, to getting to 2 billion, to getting the NRR to the triple digits, to becoming the HubSpot we use today, which is that 45% of their customers now use 3 or more HubSpot products. Almost half. I'm sure we'll cross half very soon. It's just a case of, look, we're not all at 2 billion in ARR, but the magic to HubSpot was going multi-product, making sales huge. Sales is more than 500 million in ARR. It will cross $1 billion. Making their support product bigger, making their CMS product bigger, being multi-product even for SMBs is how they've been able to continue to scale. And almost half of their customers now use 3 or more HubSpot products. That's kind of the magic. Point 6, we'll give you a 3 quick bonuses. Point 6, international revenue. We've talked about this before on SaaStr, but it's a great one to learn from HubSpot on. International revenue is now 46% of their total. And interestingly, it's growing faster than North America. That's fairly uncommon. When we look at Asana, when we look at Freshworks, when we look at others, they're actually seeing Europe as weaker and North America as a relative source of strength. Well, for whatever reason, HubSpot isn't. It's actually seen stronger revenue growth at 33% outside of the US than 27% in the US. In any event, it's a reminder that they're seeing stronger growth outside of the U.S. and 46% of their revenue is outside of the U.S. I can't emphasize this so much to founders that are too myopic about their local market, about the U.S. market. Look, if your product has complicated regulatory environment, if it has complicated financial services elements, it may well be hard to expand beyond your local markets, to expand beyond the US. Leaders like Bill.com took a long time to go international as the product is hyper localized to American financial services. But HubSpot ain't. You can use HubSpot pretty much everywhere, especially if you use a localized version. So it's just a reminder of advice I give founders again and again. If you have any material amount of revenue outside the US, lean in there, invest in there, localize your product early, hire a country manager in EMEA, in APAC or whatever. If you have a chance to get even 8, 9, 10% of your revenue in geography, that is a huge accelerant. And if HubSpot had not gone as global as international is today, it would literally be half the size if it had been too North American focused. So we see most similar sort of B2B apps be somewhere in the 25, 30% international. 46% is high. HubSpot is an outlier here, so it's great to learn from, but challenge yourself to go more global, more early. It is not a distraction. It can be a magic accelerant. Okay, point 7, I just found this was interesting that HubSpot called it out. They said Q1 is their seasonally strongest quarter, and I hate hearing about seasonality. The reason I hate hearing about seasonality is I find most founders use it as an excuse. Why did you miss Q1? Well, Q4 is our big season. Okay, well, maybe if you're in e-commerce or some other categories. But the thing is, if you're growing triple digits each year, we should not be seeing big declines due to seasonality. Like, even if it's true, you should be growing so quickly as a startup that you don't actually see seasonality. So I usually find for startups, it's an excuse, but it doesn't mean it's not true. So it's very helpful to have HubSpot call out that Q1 has always been seasonally strong for them. So they were doing that in part to hedge because their customer ads were impressive at 9,000. But seasonality is an interesting thing. Don't let it be an excuse in your startup, my strong recommendation, but also be aware of how similar applications are seen in terms of trends for seasonality. Okay, point 8, and this is one that, actually I've got two more, point 8, point 9. Point 8 is one that deserves an almost infinite amount of sessions because it's so interesting, but 40% of HubSpot's revenues come from its partners. I linked to an excerpt of an amazing deep dive I did with co-founder Brian Halligan on SaaStr.com. If you look for it under 5 interesting learnings from HubSpot, where he just talks about what an epic, incredible moat getting 40% of their revenue is from partners. I can't tell you how profound this can be. It's profound for Shopify. It is profound for HubSpot. And I was at reInvent with a breakout SaaS vendor coming up on 50 million in revenue. And we were at a dinner and I asked the co-founder, I'm like, okay, listen, obviously you have a great product. You are a great co-founder, but you have like 6 companies that look a lot like you. What was one of your secrets? He said, well, one of our secrets is that none of our competitors are here at reInvent. None of them sell through AWS as a channel. We have big competitors, but we think we have over 90% of the partnership revenue through Amazon. And HubSpot similarly has a network of thousands and thousands of agencies and partners that deploy HubSpot for them. HubSpot would be half its size if it did not have this partner network. And what is profound is that if you haven't seen this with SMBs or enterprises, they tend to pick just one, an agency, a marketing agency that will help you get up and going on HubSpot or Shopify or other similar apps. They're not going to learn 4 or 5 apps. They don't have time. They don't care. They want to get paid to deploy a single app that just works for their customers. And so it becomes a huge moat if you are the one that owns these partner channels. So incredible to see it's 40% of the revenue. If you don't understand it, if you only do direct sales, if you have not thought through it, if you think partnerships take too long, and they do take a while, go to SaaStr.com and watch this incredible deep dive with Brian Halligan, and it may challenge you to think you should do more. You could be 40% bigger if you're like HubSpot and have a partner channel. Okay, last 9, a small point, but it was just helpful for me to see it. What is their ICP? And this ties back to focusing on the M of SMB. Their focus is customers from 2 to 2,000 employees. It's a wide range. And they see upmarket as 200 to 2,000. Those folks that are 200 to 2,000 can support this 10, 11, 12K price point and up. And that's a helpful way to think about it. How big a company do you need to be to fully deploy all the power of HubSpot? Well, it turns out, yes, you can. Tiny companies use HubSpot. I think most of the founders that use it are certainly, their companies are far smaller than 200, but we're fairly sophisticated. And a bigger customer for them is 200 to 2,000. So again, pretty incredible. HubSpot growing 30%, having now crossed 2 billion in ARR. It is harder for them. Upsells are taking longer. NRR has come down a bit. They do have some concern about maintaining their torrid pace of customer acquisition. But if HubSpot can add 600 million in new bookings this year, how about you? I think you can go crush it.